stick so I can have some thoughts. The sunlight night is telling me what I should say.
None of these things about a man wearing makeup or a drag queen telling stories is doing harm to anybody. As well, and this is an unfortunate thing. Another thing, sort of socioeconomic sort of perspective, is unfortunately, people who are, marginalized, whether that be people who are BIPOC or queer or trans or anything like that, they face barriers already. And so you're trying to be your authentic self, and you're like wanting to do that, but if you want to go get that job that's like an $80,000 a year corporate job, but you don't feel comfortable being your authentic self because you make a discrimination in the interview or in the workplace, then you either choose to put yourself back in the closet or you choose to do a job that's different because you're like, I cannot live that life. Then it's like you have to choose between poverty, fitting into the mold, and then choosing this corporate career just so you can survive. And we shouldn't have to choose between either of those things also, being authentic and being in poverty.
Maybe I'll introduce myself and then introduce Luca and then talk about myself.
Yeah. Sure. And then I was like, wait, what was my original point? Capitalism. Yeah, capitalism is bad.
Talk about the records, I can talk about you, I can talk about how we know each other, I can talk about many things, so I don't know. Yeah, I'm it's so broad. My brain's wow, there's too many ideas now. There's somebody who overthinks everything. Is it on now? Okay. I'm Ange, or AJ, and my pronouns are they, them. I live in Vancouver, BC, with my girlfriend and my little dog, Luca. Hello. And this is my apartment. Yeah, so I'd say I started collecting records during the pandemic. I think music is something that's very important to me, and a lot of people, it's really just missing going to concerts and going to venues and seeing all these cool bands and indie artists and things like that. And so I don't know, I just started collecting records, and it really became very interesting because I kind of went really deep with it. I was sort of with just starting to collect records of artists that I really enjoyed, and older artists like Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin, and the really old stuff, artists which are geniuses and musical geniuses. And but then I started really collecting a lot of other stuff, and it helped me to discover other artists. But one of the reasons why I think I collect records is that it's also a bit of like nostalgia, and I think some of these albums and some of the music also like connects me to different experiences in my life, and I feel like I'm kind of encapsulating something really important in these albums. And then other than that, I mean, also I feel like vinyl records, there's so many things, like they basically are listening to an album in the way that it was intended to be listened to. A lot of time when we're listening to all these other platforms, we're really like kind of not really like connecting with the artist, and you know, you're buying this tangible media, and then you're listening to the album from like beginning to end, like listening to it how it should be listened to, and it just totally changes the experience. And then I don't know, once that happened during the pandemic, then I just became hooked. And then now, I mean, I collect anything from like reggae to like, you know, new jazz to like hip hop to like Middle Eastern music, like anything you can think of, I have in my collection. Idra. So this is a really cool band that I discovered years ago when I was living in Toronto, and I was at this kind of like hipster like indie show, and it was like in this like weird warehouse, but I like this band came on and they were like so weird and cool. They had like these like dancers on the stage and their faces were painted, and they had like one guy on the keyboard, another girl doing like these weird sounds, and like this one guy that had this like really like powerful voice. And then I followed that band for years because I just was like so entranced by that one show that I had gone to, and then I had been looking for their album forever, and I like just could not find it. And I was like looking on Discogs, which to the vinyl heads, the record heads, they know Discogs is like where you go to find that rare album, and you can see like all the details of I was looking for this, and it was like over $100, and it was like in Germany or something, and I'm like, oh well, I'm like, I guess I'm not buying this. And then I just happened to be in Sonic Boom in Toronto, which is like a really well-known record store, and they just had it like in their youth section. Somebody had brought it in, and it was like $25. Now I was very, very happy about that. But yeah, let's open it up and have a look. You know, there's a lot of bands and like artists and things that I buy because I've like listened to those albums since I was like a child, but there's also a lot of artists like these guys, which are indie artists and actually not a lot of people know about, and actually are quite amazing. But let's put it on. And there's also a whole ritual of, you know, taking the album, putting it onto the record player, and playing it. And you're not supposed to touch the whole album. You're supposed to touch the edges. You do not want to put fingerprints on there. If your fingerprints get into the record, that's actually really bad, and you can actually ruin the record. So there's a whole pristineness. There's a whole other topic. Anyways, let's see. And they always had like those go-go dancers on there. I swear I had a crush on some of those go-go dancers. I didn't know it at the time. I'm like, I really like this go-go dancer. I don't know why. Another favorite album of mine is The Smiths. The Smiths. Handful of Hollow. I feel like a lot of people know this one. Pretty famous 80s goth music. Has, you know, the famous song How Soon Is Now, which is part of the Craft soundtrack. Like, we know that song. But yeah, this album, I don't know, it's just like a masterpiece. Just all that gothic angst, I don't know. This is the funny thing, I feel like, I don't know, it's like, I think sometimes like we pigeonhole people with like music, but like I also like love like hardcore hip hop, and I love like hardcore rap, but I also like, I love fucking gothic 80s music. I don't know what it is, so I think I just like music that like portrays like deep emotion and like is really in your face. But I'm sure I've had like a lot of gothic moments. I feel I look like a bit gothy right now, so maybe I am a goth, you know, like a secret goth. This is one that I've picked up recently. The Pixies, the best of the Pixies. The album is Wave of Mutilation. So this band was like pretty iconic. They had an influence a lot of like other like 90s grunge bands and things like that, like Nirvana, and some other bands that are not coming to mind, but I know they were influenced by the Pixies. You know, there's like that whole famous song, Here Comes Your Man, Where's My Mind? But yeah, like they're kind of like an alternative indie band that they kind of helped to start that movement. They formed in like the late 80s. So yeah, I'd say they didn't really like have like major success when they first came out. I feel like they, I don't know, I feel like it was like a slow kind of success for them, but don't quote me on that. I feel like they became famous later, just also because there was all these bands saying they were influenced by the Pixies. I don't know, I could be just saying so much wrong information, but that is what I think, and they are a great album, and like, if you don't know them, you should try to listen to them because they're definitely different. So, yeah. So this is a cool one. This is like very like post-punk. I literally found this I think for like $6 at Red Cat Records, which is a really cool record store in Vancouver. Very cool indie record store. But yeah, I kind of find it. Sometimes I'll grab things from the bins and I'm like, is this a good gamble? Is this not? Because sometimes you get things from the bins and you're like, I know why that was in the bin. But in this case, I like discovered this record and it was really fucking awesome. It's called Modern Creatures. They've now, I think, disbanded. But yeah, just like they definitely have a lot of influence from like old bands. They have a bit of like goth. I feel like a bit of goth elements to them. I don't know. Now into like a bit of a different genre. There's a producer, Amerigo Gazaway. I think I'm saying his name wrong. That I discovered recently, and he does these really cool mashup albums. You know, there has been some things about copyrights and things like that with using samples of songs. So I'm not sure, but I mean, I love the album. So it's kind of like a mashup between Nina Simone and Lauryn Hill, and so the name is Eunice Wayman, and it has some really cool kind of segments mixed together. I think the only way I can really tell is you just have to listen to it. It's really good. This is another favorite of mine. I also have the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. I have that album too, but this one is like just a really cool take on it. Also, if you love Nina Simone, yeah, great to listen to. Okay, come on, Aretha Franklin. If you don't have any Aretha Franklin in your record collection, then who are you? Only one of the best singers in the whole world. This has like all her like best songs, like R-E-S-P-E-C-E, and like Chain of Fools. We know that song too. I mean, you should. If you don't, you should listen to it. I mean, I was really like respected her more once I actually also watched the movie about Aretha Franklin. I learned like how she came to be a singer, and I realized she's this very ruthless woman. I think like her voice is literally like listening to like an angel. So yeah, like totally winging without a subject, because like I said, I hate being somebody that talks about a subject matter in a stupid way. Which is I think it's totally a Virgo thing. I'm like, no, I need to get the best correct information. It's like I have this perfectionism thing, and I also have this obsession with like learning new things. I'm like, oh well, you know what? I'm like, you didn't learn that, so like you should now learn that. And the next thing I'm having fatigue from trying to do too many different subjects. Yeah, I think I have a bit of that too. I think you know, I have a thirst for knowledge of things. Like I just want to I want to grasp it all, and if I can go to school forever, I will. because I love learning. I'm like, what else good is there in life? I'm like, I'm like learning a new language, learning about a new country, learning a new skill, like whatever it is. I have lots to say. I've done a lot of things now. Getting out of hand. Control yourself. I identify as non-binary, so I go by they, them pronouns. Maybe I'll talk about kind of like my journey into all of that, because I don't think it was always clear for me. It just was kind of like a natural progression. I'm not really like identifying with she, her, and all the things that sort of like that comes with that. Like there's nothing like, I don't want to be called madam, I don't want to be called girl, I don't want to be called miss, and I'm also not sir. So then there has to be some way to identify myself. They, them, I think is just something that I discovered, that people had been identifying. So I get the confusion, because I'm also like a person that I like, at the same time being queer and non-binary, I also like, I can be very black and white. So I think I had a problem with it at first, but then I realized like, the only reason people really have a problem with it because people have to just fit people into boxes, and people just want things to make sense for them so that they can like go on with their life and not be uncomfortable. And I think that's the point. So I'm like, whether I want to be called they, them, or I like want to identify as like a vegetable, like what does it matter really? It's my identity, and like ultimately I get to choose at the end of the day how I identify, and I get to live in this body, and like I don't want anybody telling me how, like I don't want them policing my body or telling me how I should identify. I don't want you to call me madam or miss or whatever, so that is my choice. And I get like the whole sort of English stuff, and I'm like, who the fuck came up with that English definition anyways? Like English people who were probably colonizers, right? The only problem people really have with it is the fact that people are just identifying with something that is not the norm, and what fits into that sort of Orthodox Christian Catholic like colonizing mold. Because if you look at other cultures, like indigenous culture, there is the two-spirit definition. And so it's not they, them, but they have two-spirit. And so that's their definition of what non-binary is. And so it is something that exists in other cultures. And it's only like westernized culture that really has an issue with it. And there is other cultures where, also like being gay, queer, trans, whatever it is really shunned upon and is illegal and could possibly get you killed. But there is just other ways of also looking at things. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean that it's not right. We don't have the right to steal somebody's like happiness or somebody's well-being or somebody's safety because you feel uncomfortable with like how they identify, and it doesn't fit into like what you think how a person should be. Unfortunately, right now we're in a time where trans people in the United States are facing a lot of like persecution, and it's a very scary time. And those people, all they are actually asking for is for a right to exist. And I don't think there's any kind of agenda where anybody's trying to make other people identify as trans or make them queer or make them gay. It's just, this is like who we are, and we're just trying to like exist. And even me being non-binary, now I say I would be considered androgynous, so I wear sometimes women's clothes or men's clothes, but I'm too scared to identify too much masculine, because I'm like, oh, well, that could put me in harm's way. And when people don't understand what you are, then people will judge you, and they don't respect you, or there can be even times where you actually, other than that, you also sometimes feel invisible, because you're no longer the definition of what a feminine bodied person is or a masculine bodied person is, and then you're like nothing to them. So there is like so many different things, and I think people don't really realize how vulnerable and how scary it is to really be within that community. of like being gay, queer, trans, non-binary, along that spectrum. You know, every day you're like living your truth and you know, sometimes with like a great risk. I'm lucky that I live here in like Vancouver and in Canada, that where these things, like I can do all these things and it's legal, and if I wanted to change my name, if I wanted to take hormones, if I wanted to like marry my girlfriend, I can do that. Oh man, I don't know, like I feel like, okay, because of my nutrition side, I feel like knowing I like should identify as a healthy vegetable, but like what I really think I would be was be like a potato, because I love potatoes, and who doesn't love a potato? Like I love poutine. Who doesn't love a poutine? Like, you know what I say, like poutine, it's just like if I was gonna identify as a food, not even a vegetable, that I would be a poutine. It's like you like love poutine so much, but if you have too much of it makes you sick. So this is how what kind of food I identify as. You know, being a teenager, I think I was a bit awkward. I was a bit of a misfit. I don't think I really fit in with the cool kids, but I didn't really fit in with the nerds either. I was just kind of like a nerdy misfit hybrid. A nerdy misfit, not cool, but kind of cool because I was a bit rebellious. When I was in high school, like I just wore like really baggy men's clothes, but I was like, oh, well, maybe you should be kind of dressing a little bit more feminine. So I kind of think I started leaning towards that. And I remember a lot of my friends were like, well, why do you wear that? Like, if you want to like be sexy and like like attract boyfriends, you should dress more femininely. And my mom used to tell me too, she's like, why don't you show more of your body? And I'd be with my like big baggy t-shirt and my big baggy like men's pants, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe. And then I think I like was in high school and I had this like really weird thing where I was like, well, I should like, you know, like these guys are cool, like, and I saw this like guy in class and I'm like, he looks kind of cool. I'm like, maybe I should date him. And so I was like, I think I like just asked him like, do you want to be my boyfriend? And so I did that. And skatery kind of looking guy with blonde hair, and so then he was like my boyfriend, but I didn't really like him. At some point, like when I got a bit older, I started like finally really having a boyfriend, and I think I started to realize that like if men think you're beautiful, you get a lot of like positive attention, and they like do things for you and buy you nice things. And I think over time I just realized that I was like, okay, I'm like, I don't know that I really just want to be with men, but I continue to date men. I don't know, I think I was just really scared. And then I just got to one point where I was in this really serious relationship for 6 years with this guy, and I just was like, I cannot do this anymore. I just left one day. I just like took my things, I left with my suitcase, and went like took a taxi, and then went to my friend's house, and I was like, could I stay with you for some time? I just broke up with my boyfriend. So yeah, and then I think, you know, I was like getting this feeling, I was like, I really just want to like date women. And then I remember going on a date with this woman, and I had never like really had romantic interactions with women at all. By this time, like, you know, I had really waited a long time. I don't really know why I was so deep in the closet. Finally met up with her and we were like connecting, and then there was like a time where I didn't really know what I wanted. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have fun. And then we like made out, and I was just like, I literally remember like kind of like rolling over and then just being like, wow, I am so gay. I'm like, that was great. It felt like all these like rainbows kind of just like formed, and like there were shooting stars, and it just was like, it was a very magical moment. So I just like really started exploring things, and it was just like so different, and it just felt like some things really started to click for me. And, you know, I ended up being in that relationship with that woman for quite some time. You know, that time I was still discovering myself. I really presented quite femininely at that time when I first met her. and that's just what I was used to. But then over time, as I got more comfortable, then I started to like, you know, shed a bit of that, like less makeup, like a little bit different clothes, and then by the end of it, I really started to like present in a more like, you want to call it masculine or tomboyish fashion. There's many words for it. You know, that kind of like might have been hard on our relationship because I think she had seen me in one way. There might have been an issue because I think, you know, she had met me at this like very feminine kind of woman, and then, you know, as time went on, I sort of changed because I really like kind of came into myself and started to be more comfortable in a different way. And I saw how certain personality traits really started to form because I really felt like I was like, I could be a little more authentic. I didn't have to like hold back anymore. I wasn't like suppressing, trying to be a certain way. So we broke up, and then I think I really started exploring this like more masculine way of being. And I never really presented that way, so I think I tried to overcompensate for some time, and I started dating these women which were really looking for that like, you know, lesbian relationship that where the partner was like a bit more masculine. And so I really like went with that for a bit, and that was, I think, very empowering for me. I think that helped me to take some things back for myself, especially with like dating men and you know, obviously having to sometimes be you know, in a more submissive role. And I think I really like took some things back and I felt very empowered, and I just felt like, I'm like, oh, the world is like at my feet. I'm like, I feel like I can just really be myself. So I did that, but I did feel like, again, there was like something missing there. And again, I started to like continue to like go deeper and deeper. You know, it was funny because I felt like I went from like, I was like super straight, then I was like super gay, and no in between. And then to my now partner, who's really quite lovely. And I feel like now I've come into like a new kind of thing with my sexuality as well. And I think it's changing. I think, you know, gender and sexuality is very fluid, and I think when we put too much rigid sort of like ideas on that, that's where really things can feel sort of like oppressed, and you can kind of feel unhappy. You know, my partner really allows me to just kind of be myself and is very accepting, and I think the more that we were together, more I started to realize that like, oh, maybe I'm, you know, more non-binary than anything, because I felt this whole like hyper femininity in the past, and then this hyper like, you know, this me trying to like overcompensate with these like masculine gender roles. I'm like, none of it really fit. And I think now I've come into like a time where I'm just kind of like, actually, you know, those are both sides of me. They are both present and they're both valid, and I, you know, no longer feel like I have to like present in a certain way. Like, I'm like, whether I'm gonna talk femininely or you know, if I decide to be hairy and like grow hair on my body, I'm like, it's all okay. And I think I was very obsessed with, because it's also the media we consume, and the way Western society and just society in general wants you to be. Like, if you are a woman, you are a certain way. If you are a man, you are a certain way. And I'm like, felt very stuck in all of these things, and I just was like not loving myself. I am okay with like just not being that sort of like perfect picture of what a like somebody should be like. Like, I no longer really identify with the term of lesbian. I feel like, you know, I'm like, you know, I'm a non-binary person, so I don't really feel like that fits. And the more that I grow, and the more that I dive deeper within myself and do the work, the more I see that, you know, that there's a lot of sort of spiritual work involved in all of that too. And you know, we're these energetic beings, and these types of things, they're very surface. And you know, the more inner work you do, the more ego you let go, and the more humility you have, then you really start to like love yourself and just accept yourself, and just like let all of that go, but it takes a lot of work to get there. And I can't say that I'm perfect, because I do have like major moments of ego and embarrassment and whatever, all of that. I mean, we just really also have to have compassion for each other too. You know, if we start like having more compassion for each other and really holding space and things like that, then I think we can like show those true authentic like layers of ourselves. But it just gets really hard, because you know, we're just with these judgmental thoughts and like ideas that like really don't serve anyone. And so I mean, there's so many layers to that, and I just like to bring up the topic of gender, because I just think, you know, we're at a time and a precipice where I think the reason why all of these laws are going to place is because I think people are seeing that how people are rising up and that people are letting go of all that bullshit. But you know what Luca says? All we need to do is just give him a kissy and a hug, and everything is gonna be a-okay. Hello, this is AJ, gender guru, archangel, spiritual guide. I'm here to talk to you today about the evil forces that betrove us. So I'd like you all to just breathe with me here. Let's channel all that energy and let's let it go. Don't you feel better now? I think it's time for story time. So it's made of the purest selenite in all of the land, picked by little baby forest nymphs. We need to listen to our inner feelings. We really are just trying to spread the good message of the queer trans agenda. I don't know what else to say. Okay. Please sit with me and let's do a meditation. These pelts, they come from, oh, I'm using one. Excuse me. They come from the very faraway land of the queer gender gods. And they've been passed down for generation to generation. They've been bathed in rainbows and blessed by all of the drag queens. Let's do a meditation now. Oh, right. We're not ready to ding yet. Now let's just close our eyes. And I want you to imagine, what would RuPaul say? RuPaul would say that if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? Can I get an amen? And I'm just going to leave you with that. As someone who is an expert on the love, I would say my best advice for dating is make sure that your partner does not have any parasites. They should be doing a parasite cleanse every 6 months, and along with that, cleansing their spiritual energy and not holding on to any of those toxic. It's getting smoky in here. Any of that toxic. Let go of any of that toxic energy that we're holding on to. I'd say we really just need to be our authentic selves, and we need dating advice, like who not to date,
like what you should do on a date, or maybe it'll just be like it's just like bloopers only because there's nothing else to talk about. Love advice. Archangel AJ, gender guru. Let's talk to the selenite stick. See what sort of advice it's telling me. So love advice, is that what we all want to know, right? Because, you know, we all don't want to die alone. We all want to be in love. What can I say? You know what the selenite stick says? Clean your apartment. Your date doesn't want to come over and you have your dirty underwear on the floor. You know what? This whole thing about who's gonna pay, you pay, I pay. I mean, honestly, you know, we should all just pay. Like, each pay in the date. My flowers are falling down. Oh. Welcome. This is AJ, Gender Guru, Archangel AJ. Today we're going to be doing a reading. As a knower of gender things and of love, I feel that I could really provide some guidance. We are going to use our selenite stick to knock on the deck. We have drawn Vajrayogini, the essence of all Buddhas, Perpetua, the saint of authenticity, and Green Terra, the Buddha of enlightened action. Okay, so what do these cards mean? Let me hold the selenite for some wisdom. So when we draw this card, we are basically saying that we have the power to make each moment sacred. Everything is material for my liberation. We really do need to be enjoying all the small moments and making everything sacred. And I believe you are all sacred as well. And know that I hold you all in my heart. Perpetua, the saint of authenticity. I am my authentic self in all circumstances. Well, I can really relate to that. You know, somebody who lives their life unapologetically, like the saint of authenticity, Perpetua. You should always be your authentic self. What other self should you be? And don't ever feel scared to be your authentic self. We should all be true to ourselves. Green Terra, the Buddha of enlightened action. My soul informs my every step and I do what my heart compels me to do. Sometimes we may be drawn into certain situations where we are not very heart-centered, and you know, the way of the Buddha and what the Green Terra is showing us is that we really need to be heart-centered in our actions and really following what our heart is telling us and not leading with the ego. I want to thank you for coming today for life readings with Archangel AJ, Gender Guru. I feel like I should have laughed. You know, it's like we're getting further and further away from like authentic way of like living. Like, what happened to community? And like, then I was like, wait, what was my original point? Capitalism. Yeah, capitalism is bad.